Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 62, Focusing Throughout the Day. Huh? What? Wait, what?
Sorry, did we start? Does this sound familiar?
Oh my god, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hey guys, welcome to Small Biz Life. My name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we're here for another exciting episode
Of Small Biz Life.
We are actually recording in the evening, so yeah.
You'll probably think we're drinking.
But we're not.
We're not.
We're just high on life.
We are high on life.
So if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for being with us again this week. And if you're new to the show,
Thank you for staying this long.
I know, because if this was my first experience, I'd be like, yeah, okay. No, thanks so much for still being here after the first minute and a half. Jeff and I are a husband and wife team of small business owners who are walking you through this journey that we call the Small Biz Life.
Yes.
Because we know that this is not a 9 to 5.
Oh, not at all.
You are making a passionate commitment to a 24/7 business.
Yeah, no, that's the way it rolls. And the thing is, I've noticed over this last week and, irregardless of why, a lot of people seem to be unfocused. They seem to be scattered. A lot of emotions are running high. So we want to do a more upbeat episode and focusing on focus.
Yeah.
And that was unintentional, not cleverness. And really, there's a great quote about opportunity. And let me just read it out here. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And that was from Winston S. Churchill, a guy who actually wasn't really good at a whole bunch of things, but made an excellent leader at a bad time for Britain. And the thing is, that's why we're in business. Is we see opportunity, but the problem is life stomps on us over and over again. And when you're looking for the opportunity and you let life stomp on your energy, on your drive to move forward, you're not going to have the time. And when you don't have the time, you miss opportunities. And that's why focus is really important. And especially for someone like me, I really have trouble focusing on many, many, many tasks.
And I think as a small business owner in general, I think it's really hard. Most people go into small business for that flexibility. And then they realize that they're so flexible, they're not getting any work done.
Wait, you mean the flexibility means I work all of the time and have no time to myself? Yes, very flexible.
No, and I don't think that's the case. Like, I think we do a really good job at certain periods of time. The last 6 weeks haven't been great for that. But even like through that, like with how busy we've been, like we've spent time together, we've built in downtime. Right.
And we keep moving it forward and we keep our life moving forward. Like I said, when life keeps getting in the way, you need to fall back on focusing, because whether or not, an election makes you feel really bad or there's health issues in your family, there's always going to be something that's going to hold you back from the opportunity that you see. And the more invested you get in your business, the more dangerous this becomes. If you become debilitated because of things going on in your life and you're running a small business and it's a sole proprietorship and you do all of the work, guess what? None of the work's getting done. And when none of the work's getting done, that can come back and hurt the revenue, which will cause financial difficulties, which will create more distractions in your life. So when you have a bad day, the most important thing is you have to focus up front.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think, I think it's interesting you said focus up front.
Mm-hmm.
I am a huge believer that in order to start your day on the right foot,
Yeah.
you have to have like a morning routine.
Yes.
I think that is so critical. I see a lot of small business owners, joke about how, oh, well, I didn't shower this morning. I didn't get dressed this morning.
Mhm.
I'm in my pajamas. It doesn't matter if I am working from home or going to a client or going to the
Mhm.
university. One of the first things I do every morning is I take a shower and I get dressed.
Yeah.
And it's like a mental cue
Mhm.
that my brain's like, okay, we're going now.
Okay, the next thing we do is work. And we're going to start off and talk about routine a little bit, because routine is something that a lot of people actually who get a small business don't want. They think that it's a bad thing. And I think we look at it the wrong way. Routine doesn't mean that you have every minute of your day planned the exact same way every day and it works the same way. But you need a certain framework built into your day that's consistent. Because if I do that task in the morning, my brain knows that it's shifting to work. If I have my work block set up between the time I finish that and I go to lunch, my brain is focused on that. The work activities are going to change, and some days it's going to be more mundane. Some days it's going to be more interesting. Like when we create, we're much more productive when we create stuff. We're much less productive when we're doing the other stuff, which is unfortunately a part of being a small business owner. You have to do it. But when you have the routine set in and then you get to that lunchtime, step away from your desk, because I'm good at this. Have your lunch. Take your mind away from what you're doing. Take your mind away from what you're doing. If you have to meditate, if you play that bubble game on your phone, it's a great time. Do something that takes your mind off of what you're doing. It helps. It's like drinking a fine wine with dinner. It cleanses the palate of the brain. And you need to do that. You need times in the day you cleanse the palate of your brain. Before you switch from two different types of activities, you need to do it. At lunchtime, you need to do it. It'll help you get more out of your brain, because our brains get stuck. They're like us. They operate in certain ways. There's part of our bodies, and Kristen might have to tell me how to pronounce this, ulradian rhythms. I think that's correct.
From what you wrote on the board that I can actually read. Sure. I didn't even know that word said rhythms.
Yeah. There's some different letters in there.
Okay.
But we don't judge here on show notes.
That's right.
At least not the ones on the board. But your body has a bunch of different mechanisms that work on these cycles that happen over the period of a day. Most of them are like 30 to 90 minutes. And, it's your appetite. It's your being aroused. It's all of these things that are in your life. These all act on rhythms. Your sleep breaks down into these rhythms. Different things happen, but when those don't work correctly, it causes other issues.
Right. And your brain is also motivated by triggers. And that's why I'm a big fan of, you shower, you get dressed in the morning, because that is a trigger for your brain that the workday is about to begin.
Yeah.
Or when you don't step away from your desk during lunch, that causes confusion, because your brain thinks, okay, trigger, I'm at the desk, I should be working, but we're eating.
He's putting food into my mouth and typing. That's two tasks. And your brain, as much as you think that it takes no effort to eat, it is taking away from the work you're doing. The quality of the work won't be quite as good, or it'll take you a lot longer to get through it.
And your brain really likes separation of duties. And even, one of the things that is really important as a business owner, you have to have a separate space from which you work. And it's not the dining room table. It's not the couch. It has to be a workspace.
Yeah.
So that when you go to that space, your brain goes, aha, the working place.
Yes.
You know, and even a lot of the things that we read to prep for this show said do not move your work location all the time.
Yeah.
Because it confuses your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So have a location that's not your kitchen table, that's not your dining room table, that's not your couch, it's not your bed.
It should be noise free. And when I use that term, I use it loosely because to me, noise is distraction. And it's not necessarily the actual noise. So like if I can have a consistent arithmetic noise going on, that won't distract me. But if it's a disjunct noise, it will distract me. If it's a visual cue, like a television, no televisions in your workplace, not when you're trying to be creative. How can your brain focus on creating something and watching the news or the soap opera, which I don't know if there are any of those on TV anymore.
I think there's still
the
a
talk
couple.
shows,
Whatever
whatever
it
you're
is.
watching. It's going to distract and take away and add another task at the same time. Lots of people love to believe they're multitaskers. And some people can kind of pull it off and you look at them and you go, wow, they're doing like 3 things at the same time.
That's really bad for your brain.
It's bad for your brain. Your brain is not designed to do that. And ultimately, it will slow down all of those tasks to take more than 3 times the length of time to finish them.
No, and I think that that's super important if you're trying to focus. So have that work location, get rid of the TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think music can help
Mm-hmm.
certain types of people. There's actually a product, I'll link it in the show notes, and this is one thing that really helps me. There's a product called Focus at Will, and it's a bunch of scientists that got together and figured out that there are certain sound patterns that will help you focus better. It's music that you can listen to, and they actually have all different kinds, but there are no vocals in any of the music. But they found that
Vocals don't distract me.
but they distract some people.
Yeah.
But they basically design these music channels to help your brain become focused. Now look at who did not silence their phone? My phone's in the other room.
Bad kitty.
Because see, he's distracted now.
Trying to figure out how to shut off the noise under pressure.
I know.
Yeah, and once again, you know, comfort's also important. You need to have a level of comfort that you're not distracted because not being comfortable is a distraction. Being too comfortable is also a distraction. Like my original workplace was in bed under the covers with the electric blanket going, and I kept finding I was doing really good for sleep.
Yeah, that's good for sleeping. You know, and again, you know, I think having defined spaces in your home for, hey, this is where we eat, right? This is where we watch TV. This is where we work. Because you're giving your brain signals, right? So if you work from the couch and then you try to relax from the couch, your brain is going to go, so are we supposed to be working now?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm going to think about all the things that you should be doing that you're not.
Because focusing really is the art of getting rid of everything but what you need to be doing. And when you can find that art, you can use focus to get you through really bad days. You know, it's like, you know, when I was being trained to be a scout in the Army, you know, one of the things they keep trying to train us is in your reacting. Target pops up, target falls down. This happens, Jeff does this. That happens, Jeff does this. You need to work at some of these things so they become like muscle memory for your brain, you know, and that's why routine is important. And I'm not saying every day has to be structured exactly the same way, but you know what? Try and keep your Tuesdays your Tuesdays. If you have one writing day a week, because that's part of what you do, but not all of it, keep it the same day. And we talked about some of this stuff before, but it's really the importance on focusing because once again, your body builds routines. That's how it remembers to do stuff. And you use less mind. Your mind is less consumed with what you're doing next and more in, okay, I finished this task. Let me go to my list. When your brain gets there, you don't waste your mental strength, the energy that is going to get distracted in other ways on stuff. And when you truly focus, You know, it's like one of the things, and this maybe annoys my wife, is I can work my body until it breaks, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happened.
It's all through focus. And I'm not saying to do that. That's actually a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, disclaimer, do not do that at home.
Do not do that at home.
The legal team made me say that.
But for me, it's someone who doesn't distract. When I can get into a routine, when I can rely on sort of that muscle memory in my brain, those habits we've created, I can get through any day. Any day.
Well, you know, one of the things that's always like blown my mind, you know, especially it's November, so you're doing NaNoWriMo.
Mm-hmm. Really poorly so far, but yes.
But the thing is, like, you can sit down like on a Saturday morning and like you come to me like 4 or 5 hours later and you're like, yeah, I just wrote 16,000 words. And you're like, what? Like, how did you do that? Like, you can't even remember where your keys are half the time.
Yes.
You know, but like you get hyper focused when you're being creative. Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, I don't want to, like, I just leave you alone when you're in that zone, because it just amazes me, like, how many words you can write in a short amount of time when you're in that zone.
And I'll be relying on that to get through NaNoWriMo this month, because it's been a very distracting month so far.
But that, it's amazing to see that.
And the thing is, too, is like, for me, it's like, I try and maximize not wasting my brain. And you'll see that in my dress.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Jeffrey, you know that.
You know, I have worn shirts to work inside out because they were hung wrong on my hanger. So I have to try and be careful not to do that. And I try to, but sometimes I'm not paying attention when I'm hanging them up as well. You know, and if Kristen isn't there to keep me straight, or she doesn't happen to do it, which she'll do it correctly, I have gone to work with my shirts inside out, because for me, I like clothes that all work together. I get the first shirt that's appropriate. I get the first pants that are appropriate, and I'm off to work. And it's over and over again. I don't waste mental energy on anything I don't have to, because I understand, for me at least, it's a limited resource.
Yeah, no, and you know, I kind of do the same thing. You know, I can get in and out of the shower in like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not a very high maintenance person. I kind of grab like the first thing that's acceptable out of the closet.
But you make sure they match.
I do. But that's why I wear jeans a lot, because pretty much everything matches with jeans. So, you know,
that's true.
That makes things easier. I don't have to worry about the pants and the shirt coordinate, and I don't have time for that. And I don't have brain power for that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that bringing simplicity to your life, and I even have to say, you know, a couple years ago we went through and we got rid of a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And so, like, there aren't a lot of knickknacks in our house. There's not a lot of clutter in our house. The dining room table's a disaster right now because we've been traveling for the past 6 weeks. So that's kind of like the dumping ground. Like, here's all the receipts that we need to scan later. Poop, and they go right on the dining room table. But I just think that, like, having that clarity of space, right, and not having all of that stuff, I even think that really helps. In fact, one of the tips we have is that, you know, keep your desk clean, because that clutter is distracting.
Well, one of the things too, and someone's noted this to me at work, and it's kind of true. At home, I do get cluttered when I'm working. Unfortunately, our desks don't have places for me to put the clutter, unfortunately, when I'm done. So I should be better at picking it up, but I'm not. But where I'm working, I don't look down that way. Just ignore it for months. But someone said, he's like, you could like quit and no one would know from looking at your desk. You know, I don't have things that are going to distract me at work. I don't have pictures of my wife. I don't have cute quotes. I don't have a very comforting or humorous calendar. I'm not saying I don't engage in that stuff, but it's not hanging all over my thing, because you know what? If there was a picture of my wife there, it would distract me, because I love my wife. If I see my wife, I'd take a moment, look at my wife, and I can do that on my phone. I don't need it hanging at my desk. So, you know.
Plus, you'd rather be at home with your wife.
I'd rather be at home with my wife, you know. So, but once again, you know, when you're thinking these things through, you know, especially in building your routine, keep the ulradian rhythms in your mind. They last, you know, I don't know, 90 minutes to 1 hour and 20 minutes, which you shouldn't be doing any task for any longer than that, because your mind will start getting fatigued. even if you're good at focusing. So like me, I can focus really well on certain types of activities. Like when I'm writing, I can go much longer than when I'm doing something I find boring, which I struggle sometimes to get to my 25 minutes in my little 30-minute bubbles I use for Pomodoro. But, if I'm writing this stuff, I can actually focus for intense long periods of time. But the problem is if I don't take that break in the hour and 20 minutes, which is sometimes frustrating. So I try and keep it a little shorter than that so I can take a break, distract myself, bang my head against the wall when a chapter is completed, because it's kind of tough sometimes, where you're at in a chapter to just cut off. So I'll do the time less than that, but it's 30-minute increments, and don't go past an hour and 20 minutes, because that's when you start throwing off the rhythms in your body.
Well, and if you're not, I've talked to some people that have, emailed me after an episode or talked to me after listening to an episode and say, I can't even imagine, doing 25-minute blocks, let alone like a 50-minute block. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, if you have a short attention span, you have to work up to that. Mm-hmm. So try starting with a 10-minute block. And can you be super focused for 10 minutes? And then do that for about a week. And then try to upgrade to maybe 12 minutes or 14 minutes and kind of work your way up to the 25. Mm-hmm. Because some people just, they don't have the attention span to instantly go to 50. And then they're like, well, this isn't working. I'm going to drop it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to work yourself up. If you can get through 10 minutes hyper focused, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great start. Right. And because there are some days I have trouble with like, all right, it's been 7 minutes since I've checked my phone. I should go check my phone now because maybe there's an email or something there. And, and I think everybody has those days. And even if you're having a day like that, just try to focus for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and don't think like just because I'm working 90-minute blocks, I have to work 90-minute blocks every day. In those periods of work time, it's just blocks. It's just blocks. And if all you can do is 10 minutes, just do 10 minutes because you're still moving the ball forward. And that's the most important things, especially on those days you can't focus because of life.
Right. And so right now, I'm working on a project that we're actually rebuilding the Small Biz Life website. And I'm trying to migrate the content over. We're getting off of WordPress for that site and we're using something else.
And we'll probably talk about it at some point.
We will. We'll do an episode on it. But, so, all right. So I've got to I've got to copy the HTML from the WordPress site to the new site. And then I'm also redoing all the graphics. So at this point, I'm working in one post chunks. Mm-hmm. So it takes me about 10 minutes to completely move over, one of the posts and make a new graphic for it. And so then afterwards I'll be like, okay, can I do another? Okay, let's do another. Or sometimes what? I can't do another. Let me take a 5-minute break, kind of walk around, and then say, okay, now let me sit down and do another one.
Especially for mundane work like that, where it's something that has to happen, but it's repetitive, it's boring. And I want to give you all a secret to think about here. And it always shocks me because I use it so much that when I tell people stuff, they're like, you could do that? That's magic. It's keyboard shortcuts. And I'm not saying you need to go look up a site on all of the Microsoft or Mac OS shortcuts, but when you find there are repetitive activities that you're doing, like you're cutting and pasting, that's usually the most typical one that people use. There are 3 letters you have to remember: X, C, V. C is the most important one to remember because C is copy. Mm-hmm. X is before that, it cuts. V is after that, it pastes. They're right next to each other on the keyboard. But, if there's activity you keep doing in software all of the time, there's almost always a keyboard shortcut. And usually, if you're in a Windows environment or a Mac environment, they're almost always the same keys in different programs. So if you start using them, you can save so much time. Instead of having to retype that name, if it's in an electronic email, you can copy and paste it to wherever it needs to go. You don't need to retype it. Sometimes it's easy to retype it, but trust me, there's a lot I can do very quickly on a keyboard because I know keyboard shortcuts, and the things I do a lot, those are the ones I know. And there are other ones I have no idea what they are.
Well, it's funny because, doing this migration. So there are basically 4 components that have to go into each one of these blog posts, right, for the show notes. So one is the existing HTML from WordPress, which I'm not taking the pictures, right, because that link won't work once the other website's down.
Yeah, yes.
Then I've got, listen to the show on the 80 different platforms that we're on. And then I've got the code for the player so that you can play the podcast on the website.
Of course.
And so I kind of have this routine now, like, okay, I open up the WordPress, I open up the link in Libsyn, and then I have this text file that has the HTML for the listen everywhere stuff. And so, what I've been doing is I say, okay, grab the blog post, paste that in, grab the listen in 80 different locations, paste that in, grab the player, paste that in, and then hit okay, and all that is saved.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, once I developed like a system, right, now I can do them. It went from taking me 25 minutes to do one to no more than 10 minutes to do one. So sometimes just kind of having those systems and saying, okay, this is exactly how I'm going to do it, will help you focus and be more productive.
And understand when you're creating them, it's not going to be at its peak. So like she said, the first one probably took her maybe half hour, and now she's down to 10 minutes consistently. But that's when you can really manage your time better, because I can knock out 3 of these in 30 minutes. And that's where you get the payoff. So sometimes when you start off a little slower and build a system around, especially something that you're doing 2 or 3 steps in repetitively, or 4 or 5 steps repetitively, if you can just think through what you have to get done every time and come up with a way. That's why we both have dual monitors, at least.
I have 3.
Multiple windows open at the same time. So, okay, I'm going to Libsyn. I'm grabbing the embed code. I'm putting it over here for now, so I know where it's at. I don't have to worry about getting into that form. I'm going over, I'm grabbing what I need to put in the post. I put it in there, boom. I then go grab the other thing, boom. And it becomes repetitive. But the thing is, too, now, even if she's a little distracted, she's probably still doing some of the more mundane parts of that so she can focus on creating the graphic.
Right. So, that's the thing. It's like, if you can develop systems, and even if it's something that you don't do all the time, maybe have like a checklist for it. And I kind of have that when I'm doing working on the podcast is, okay, so first I have to edit the podcast, then I run it through this program, then I run it through that program, then I put the tags on, then I upload it to Libsyn, then I grab it from, so I have this checklist that I go through every week when I do the podcast to make sure that I get all the things done that I need to get done.
The same thing when I started the other podcast too, is I had a checklist for pre-production. I had a checklist for production and post-production, because those are the 3 parts of it. So my post-production's, where am I putting it? And trust me, at this point, I don't need it. But you know what? If someone else ever steps in or intervenes for certain parts of those steps, I can refer them back to the documentation I have now. But before, when I was first doing it, it was a little bit more complicated because I didn't know some of the tips and tricks that I know now. So like I had to do some more manual editing to make the sound better. And so like I had everything that I did, all of the filters and how I did it lined up in the checklist. And after 4 or 5 times, because I was doing it so frequently, I got it down and I kept it. And now I have A to B, but on those distracted days, sometimes, especially when there's several steps, it really helps you to have something to refer back to quickly.
Okay, so what's this that you have in the notes under your Irradian rhythms where it says blood pressure, pulse?
Oh, and shirt styles? Is that shirt styles?
This is what happens when Jeffrey writes on the board. We're like, what on earth did he write 10 minutes ago?
Essentially, those are different types of uranium rhythms that happen in your body. So, and I mentioned some other ones like appetite, but those are all things that actually have a complete cycle, which falls into this 90 to an hour and 20-minute range. So there's just lots of different kinds, and moving helps keep your rhythm going because that's what your body's designed to do. That's why a lot of times you go see a motivational speaker and they have you do jumping jacks or pick your friend's nose or whatever it is. They have something to get you moving, to get your blood flowing, because that's something, especially when you sit down a lot during the day, will get disrupted. And eating regularly and on a basic schedule, if it's 15 minutes late or half hour late, but sort of in rhythm to what you're doing. So maybe I'm a half hour late, but I take a 90-minute lunch, which is great. If you're a small business, you can do that, because you're trying to keep it into those blocks, because much like sleep cycles, if you sleep 4.5 hours is not nearly as productive as 6. Why? You're interrupting your sleep patterns. So you need to understand that your body operates in these 90 to an hour, 20-minute blocks. And if you don't respect that, your body will punish you. And on days, and maybe it's a week or 2 weeks or a month that you can't focus, you can fall back on doing stuff like breathing, meditating, getting up, moving, drinking, eating regularly. Those are the things that will help keep your body going and allow you to do some of those other things that we're saying about focusing.
So since we've lost so much focus, and this happens with us, especially like when we're really interested in a topic,
Yes.
You'll kind of notice that we kind of veer around, and
because
we're
instead of staying on topic, we start talking about the other parts because they do interrelate.
Right. So, one thing, if you find that you're kind of like losing momentum during the day, one thing that you should try to do is in the morning, map out your day.
Yeah.
And I do this every morning. I look at my schedule and I say, okay, what do I have on my schedule today? What are the things that are going to, distract me, like meetings and phone calls? And I really like this because I've never really thought about this before, but visualize your day.
Yeah.
Visualize, okay, this is what my morning is going to look like. This, I'm going to break for lunch, maybe think, what are you going to have for lunch? Visualize your afternoon and getting through it with all the energy that you need.
And I believe you should literally map it out. Map out your day.
And you have software for that.
I do have software that can do that, yes. But, you use just like little icons that are meaningful to you so that you understand where you're going. They'll prefer you back. Okay, I'm in a block. I'm at lunch. I know, Jeffrey, step away from your desk. Put the keyboard down, sir. Okay, go eat some food.
But, and if you get distracted throughout the day, maybe take a couple minutes to take some deep breaths. If you meditate, visualize getting your brain, getting your mind, getting your focus back. One of the things that, and I talked about this last week too, but one of the things that Brendan had us do at Experts Academy, especially like in the afternoon, because we started at 9:00 in the morning, Pacific time, right? And I'm on the East Coast. And then we went to about 1:00. Then we had 2 hours for lunch. So we came back at 3:00 and we went till like 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
And, so for me being on the East Coast, like this was way outside my normal schedule.
Yeah.
And there were people there from all over the world, so, but he said, just close your eyes and think about where your energy level is right now. He's like, I want you to visualize your energy levels going up. So maybe it's, a lightning bolt, hitting your mind, or, I always visualize like the dial on the,
turn up to 11
on the radio, right? Where it's like, I'm turning up that dial and I'm turning it up with, with my mind. And it was funny because after we did that exercise, just visualizing having more energy, it was enough to get me through the rest of the day. So I think if you can visualize yourself being successful that day, getting back on track, it will help you refocus.
And when you go through that process, inevitably, the interruptions that cause the distractions, the big ones that really distract you, don't come at an even block. they don't come at the right times. And sometimes, it's your mom, she's been sick, you have to answer the phone. So you answer the phone and it throws you off. There's nothing you can do at the moment. You're going to, have to get some stuff ready and go, take care of the stuff that you can take care of. And then take a moment, look back at your plan for the day and revisualize what you can still get done and help use that same technique of visualizing what you have left to do. In the time you have, you might have to cut off some items that day because of the real life distraction that happened. Do it without remorse. Just check it off and then relook at that map that you have and visualize those steps out again. Because once you can see, you're trying to create the light at the end of the tunnel because that will draw you forward.
Right. And I do recommend that while you're doing, after you've done your visualization and, you're refocused on your day, take 10 really deep breaths, so that you can hear them. Because what that will do is that will help oxygenate your body and it will help your blood start flowing better and your mind will wake up.
Oh, you don't tell your husband this until now.
I told you this when I got back.
No. You told me that you were taught a breathing technique. You didn't tell me what it was.
Well,
ever.
no, I didn't teach you that technique yet.
No.
I got to find a video on that to make sure I can do it right. Because it's like, if you don't do it right, you'll get dizzy and pass out. So,
ooh, even cooler.
So I got to see if I can find a video.
So also do it incorrectly right before you go to bed. Probably not a good idea.
Not, no. Yeah. But, just 10, deep breaths, but, breathe in, breathe out so you can hear it. Because that's really, it's good for your circulation.
But, really the key is, though, you're going to have distractions that sometimes they'll make you really distraught. I've seen a lot of people really distraught over the recent elections, building up to the elections. And that is minuscule compared to some of the horrible things that will impact you directly in life. So the thing is, you have to find a way to be able to focus and then refocus if needed during a day. So find the routine that works for you. Visualize what you're going to do as part of that routine. That should be part of your routine. So maybe you have a 90-minute block at the beginning of the morning where you're taking a shower, you're eating some breakfast, even if it's light, just something light to get some energy into your body. You're drinking some water or orange juice or coffee if you're me.
But you should always drink some water first.
Yes, water is key first and should be repeated throughout the day.
Because if you don't hydrate your brain gets tired and it's harder to focus.
And, but, once you get that down, it becomes muscle memory. So you get that bad phone call. If your reaction is always to do something, target pops up, target pops down. The reason the military is so good, the Army specifically, is they change your behavior by making you respond. You don't start thinking until it's too late in some circumstances. And you don't need to go to that extreme, but you need to train your body so when that bad thing happens, you react. When you get that bad distracting thing, you do what you can. What you can't do, you have to set it aside for a time. You go back and focus on what you need to do that day because maybe tomorrow you have to leave to go take care of something. Whatever it is, you need to be able to take advantage, maximize the time that you can spend working while you're working because there are always going to be distractions and some are going to be horrible, some will be minor, some might even be enjoyable. But if you can't focus and then refocus when need happens during the day, you're going to sit there and look back and say, that opportunity that I saw, that's now turned into regret.
Well, and the thing is, for me, it's really about being able to get the things done that I need to get done so that I can spend time with you.
Yeah.
And so the more focused you are during the day, the more you will get done so that you can have time with your family, so you can have time with your friends. But if you don't focus, it's going to take you longer to get the same amount of work done. You are going to have those regrets. You're going to be angry with yourself because you're not making progress. If you can learn these techniques to stay focused, people ask me all the time, how is it that you I run a master's program. I teach full time. I have my CPA firm. We're building Small Biz Life. We're building Accounting and Focus. We travel all the time now. How is that possible? And it's because when I need to get things done, I can sit down and be hyper focused.
And the better thing too is it allows you to be present at what you're doing during the day at work. And then it allows you to be present at dinner with your family. It allows you to be present when you're playing the board game with your children, when you're holding your mother's hand when she is sick. You can be present in all of the moments because you know what? You're teaching yourself when the target of life pops up, I'm present in the moment. And there are definitely times we think, reflection's important. Looking to the future is important. Those are parts of life. But when you're executing, you have to be present. And whether it's in small business, whether it's in your life, the biggest thing that will allow you to be focused is being present. And you can train yourself to do it at work, and you get the benefits of it when you're at home, when you're relaxing, throughout your life. Because when you can be present and enjoy your life, you can be present and work harder. It all works together. It makes your life flow. You're not overcoming obstacles. You're flowing like a river. And yeah, there are rocks in that river, and sometimes there are waterfalls. But you know what? The river keeps flowing.
Wow.
The river runs through it.
That was very prophetic. I'm impressed.
Well, I am not a prophet, so.
Well.
That work.
Apparently.
Not religiously speaking.
No. Definitely not. Wow, no, that was great. That was awesome. You just dropped the mic and walked away.
Boom. Yeah, no, I have weird moments. Just don't ask me to repeat it.
Yeah, no, I know. Now I'm I got to go back and listen to that so I can turn it into a meme. Because that's what I do now, apparently. So, if you want to learn more about how your brain works and developing habits and focus, there's a great book I'll link in the show notes called The Power of Habit.
Yeah.
And it'll teach you about those triggers and how to get your brain to react the way that you want it to. So I'd highly recommend if you haven't read that book.
And there's really a lot of good things out there now. There's a whole mindfulness movement. And one of the big benefits of that is, especially Westerners, we're not taught a lot about meditation. I probably can't really meditate in my life. I can do little tricks I've learned from reading books, but I don't have the attention span to turn my brain off.
Well, I think Brendan's probably going to teach you that in March.
Good luck. And bring it on, sir.
Yeah, because I'm bringing you to the woo-woo conference. So.
Woo-woo. But, the thing is, those things really do, it's cleanse that palate so you can be there in that moment. Enjoy the creativity that you're doing, folks. And you know what? You think, oh, I'm not creative. I'm doing IT work for other people. That's creative. Mm-hmm. Being an accountant's creative, especially if you're a shady one. Sorry.
Which I'm not.
A little accountant joke. But
That's me. No accountant jokes.
A mean accountant joke. Well, yeah, that was kind of mean. Yeah. Well, I'm present though. But it allows me to spend time with my friends guilt-free because I'm just as present for them. I can ignore my phone when I'm around my friends the same way I can when I'm writing. And I don't feel guilty when I don't respond to every notification within 32 seconds.
Yeah. So this week, be more present. Be more focused. And if you're having trouble developing a routine, put one thing in place. Say, okay, I am going to train my brain that when I get dressed in the morning, that I'm now going off to work. And have that place that is your workplace.
And you know what? If you want to wear pajamas and you have a small business, do it. But have your work pajamas.
That's right. You can have work pajamas. But you need that cue, that says, okay, now I'm in my work pajamas.
These are the work pajamas.
And that's okay too.
And I kind of respect that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, that's good.
I'll try that next week at my day job.
Yeah, no. No, I don't think so. So, guys, be focused, be present, and have an awesome week.
Love ya.
Thank you for listening to Small Biz Life. If you enjoyed the show, please take a few minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher. Please visit smallbizlife.com to view today's show notes, take this week's poll, join the Facebook community, follow us on Twitter, or submit a question for the mailbag. Support the show by checking the resources page or by going to smallbizlife.com/Amazon whenever you shop.
This was Small Biz Life.